As many of you know, I have many controversial guests, so that comes at a cost of being demonetized everywhere. So if you want to support the program, go to fightbackpodcast.com, and I have all kinds of merch on there, whether it's jiu-jitsu, fighting, political, and other accessories. And thanks for the support. Here with David Icke. We actually filmed a few months ago. Unfortunately, that was the one time I screwed up and didn't record the episode. So we talked a lot about a bunch of issues, but we were talking about Trump, Alex Jones, Elon Musk. You were telling me these were bad actors. I was kind of unsure at the time. All of these guys have showed that you were likely right, which is unfortunate. I don't want you to be right in this situation, but it's looking like you probably are. So I guess let's start with Trump, since he just did something so crazy. Comes out and says he's going to take basically the Gaza Strip and take it for America, and then likely hand it to Israel. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't want what I say to be true either. I'd rather it not be. But all I'm doing and all I've done all along is what I've always done. I've looked at people that put themselves forward in positions of power, and I've checked if they're genuine or not. And I don't care if they're of the left or of the right or of the center. The same process continues. And, I've been tracking Elon Musk for years before he bought Twitter. So I knew allowed to buy Twitter.
Yeah.
So I knew it was a scam, and very quickly the nature of the scam became clear. And I've been calling out Donald Trump since he was first running for president in 2016, when again, a lot of the so-called alternative media, there is a real alternative media, and then there's the one that calls itself that, were going with Trump. And it was clear to me when he started off, I think it was about the best part of 20 other Republican candidates going against him for the nomination. And I watched even the Republican establishment saying, "Oh, we don't want Trump," and then I watched him being promoted and picking off these different candidates until he eventually won the nomination. And when he won the nomination to run for president, I thought, this guy's the chosen one. This guy's got to bloody win. And then he goes against Hillary Clinton and, of course, wins. And when he ran for president this latest time, again, my instincts were this guy's going to win. Because what you see is not what you get. And this is the basis of the PSYOP, Jake, for me, and has been almost from the start. You have an agenda. I'm talking about the so-called deep state, what I call the global cult, because you've got to think globally.
Yeah.
You think about states alone, you're going to lose the plot. It's a global cult that operates through all these different countries. If you think on that global level and you look at the global agenda, the fundamental bottom line of the whole thing is to have a human society that is totally controlled by artificial intelligence, and to have the human brain and the human body connected to artificial intelligence, so AI becomes the human mind. So instead of forming your own thoughts, and there's a lot more to know about that, AI will form them for you. And it's what I call the totalitarian tiptoe. You're seeing AI coming in and becoming more and more and more fundamentally part of society. This is the game.
Yeah, it's moving quick too.
But you had a left, shall we say, a left-right, it's a one-party state, but you had a left, a belief system that's called left, which is basically the woke left. It wasn't the left that I remember when I was growing up. And they basically bought this whole AI thing. They're the smartphone generations and what have you. And they have, they're more at peace with this technological transformation, summarized by Google's Ray Kurzweil, when he said that by 2030, now that's a key year and it's important in terms of who's in power in the run up to that. By 2030, AI will be connected to the human brain, or in his words, connected to the cloud, which is this technologically generated electromagnetic field that is being generated from the towers, like 5G towers, but crucially, if you want a global field, a global cloud, it's coming from space and low orbit satellites. I wonder who's involved in that.
Yeah, right. And the brain chips and...
Yeah, exactly. So you have the left, and they're pretty much going with that. But you still have in the real alternative media, but you had in the rest of it a skepticism, a deep skepticism often, about this AI takeover. And you had people pointing out that Elon Musk was running a transhumanist agenda to this very end. Because, you know, this global cult, it plays the long game. It has a script which it follows as closely as it can.
Yeah.
And so when Elon Musk came out years ago and said AI could be the end of humanity and it's very dangerous, what he was doing was positioning himself as the good cop of AI against the bad cops like Klaus Schwab and Ray Kurzweil and Bill Gates. But what's happened since, and I keep saying to people, don't listen to the words, watch the actions. The actions tell you what the game is. And so ever since he said that, he's been rolling out and promoting more and more AI. So you had this whole vast number, really, of people who they had to bring on board with this whole AI agenda, who were, let's call them pushbackers on it.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Well, you make people who are pushing that agenda your friend, or you make people think they're your friend. So what you do is you have your Elon Musk with his companies pushing this agenda, not least SpaceX, and as you say, Neuralink with the brain chips, and Tesla with the driverless cars, which is massively part of this agenda.
And they track you too. It tracks everywhere you go.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the tracking from the low orbit satellites. We know about Starlink and all that, but we also have a version of that produced by SpaceX Musk, specifically for the government and the military. So, I mean, you know, yeah, they're going to use that with integrity, I'm sure. So how do you bring them on board? Well, you let Musk buy Twitter, and you let him buy it because, you know, you think in black and white, you've lost it because it's not like that. It's much more subtle. You've got to think outside the box. So if you think in black and white, you say, well, that Elon Musk, he believes in free speech and he bought Twitter and he's let these people back and he's a good, he is. Okay, well, let's look at it another way. Before Musk was allowed to buy Twitter, with people like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Pete Diddy, by the way, you you had Twitter quite openly controlled by what people call the deep state. It was dictating what could be said and what couldn't. And so then Musk, when he bought it, brought out these Twitter files, only a few of them, by comparison with what was available, and said, look, before me, Twitter was doing this and they were censoring everybody. Okay. So the question then is, so the deep state had control of Twitter. It had everything it wanted. It was deciding what people could see and not see. Yeah, absolutely. So why did they sell it, allow it to be sold to Musk then, who was claiming to be a free speech absolutist? But clearly, as you've experienced...
Yeah, he's already been, I'm one of the guys, I'm the guys on his hit list, so I know.
Yeah, exactly. So there should be no hit list if you really believe in free speech.
Yeah, free speech be free speech. It shouldn't be certain opinions aren't allowed to be spoken, and clearly they don't like my opinions.
Exactly. He doesn't. I'm sure he doesn't like mine. But the point being that once he had bought Twitter and allowed some people back, suddenly there was a transformation in the attitude of what I call the mainstream of the alternative media, which I think has been hijacked by some people, a considerable number of people since COVID, towards Musk, in the sense that suddenly he was getting a free ride. Suddenly they weren't talking about his transhumanist agenda anymore. They weren't talking about what SpaceX was doing in the sky with low orbit satellite. They weren't talking about Neuralink in the same way. And he's been, therefore, turned into some kind of God king that must not be criticized. And so I'm watching this and I'm thinking, yeah, I can see what this psyop is in terms of Musk. But then the Musk psyop becomes fused with the Trump psyop.
Yeah, they're tied in together now.
And you again, thinking outside of black and white. Don't look at the words. Look at the outcome. The outcome tells you about the sequence of events leading to the outcome. So he is suddenly, before he was announcing his presidential candidature, he was raided by the FBI at Mar-a-Lago. And then came a series of court cases. And the outcome of that was massive support for Trump from people who said, see, they're trying to stop him. They don't want him to win, so we must support him. The point is, what's been the outcome, Jake?
Yeah, he's gotten more popular. The more court cases, the more, and I was thinking that too. I'm like, they're doing so many court cases, the more they do, the more it makes them popular. And part of me wondered, is this intentional?
But what's the outcome, mate? They've all gone away.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that too. Yeah, they disappeared. So it is kind of weird. Like, where did they all go?
They've all disappeared. And then you had the assassination. Let's say I have a lot of questions about that. And on that assassination attempt, and on that very day that happened, Trump was supported immediately by Elon Musk. Almost by reflex action. Oh, I'm supporting Trump now. This has happened. And what's gone on since, of course, is that Musk has put in hundreds of millions of dollars to get Trump elected. And he has imposed himself centrally in the Trump administration. And he's currently running riot, a man who's completely unelected. One other thing that's obviously gone on, Jake, that you will have obviously noticed, is how these Silicon Valley
billionaires all switched. They all switch. I definitely noticed how they all switched to Trump. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How can we trust this guy when all the worst people have all become Trump supporters?
The AI billionaires of Silicon Valley have circled their wagons around Trump, and look, You look at the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. That needs to give permission for SpaceX and these low orbit satellites.
Yeah.
As a result of the Trump administration coming in, a mate of Musk is now heading the FCC.
Oh, wow.
Then you have, and that's not the only mate of Musk in a significant position that would benefit him. But this is the other thing. You know, the PayPal mafia, as it was called, or is called, this is Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and a guy called David Sachs. David Sachs is another billionaire who is a mate of Musk, and who has Trump appointed as his AI and crypto czar, David Sachs. Then you've got this guy, Mark Andreessen, who blocked me on Twitter, even though I never mentioned him on Twitter before then. And he's pushing the whole agenda as well, saying, well, how great AI will be. And then, of course, even quicker than I expected, Jake, to be honest, within days, was it 2 days of the inauguration, he wheels out Larry Ellison and Sam Altman to push this potentially $500 billion Stargate AI.
Yeah, and what's that going to do? I was a little confused exactly what's that supposed to do? Just make AI all powerful?
The key to it, mate, is the data centers. The centers that process the data, because you're going to have a fantastic amount of data when you've got AI running the show, and you're going to need an enormous amount of electrical power, because this is why people like Microsoft are taking over whole bloody nuclear power stations to power this operation, while they're telling us we've got to get by on windmills. So you have this AI takeover, and this connects into what Musk is doing and Trump is doing in firing all these employees, government employees.
Oh, because AI will take the jobs.
AI is going to take over, and of course, you stop dealing with humans and you start dealing with AI. Well, AI is not going to listen to you.
No, it's going to tell us what to believe. Tell us what to believe, what to think. It seems like it's going to be the next generation coming up. They're not going to think for themselves. AI is going to tell them something, and they're just going to believe it.
Well, that's happening already. To be honest, if you look around, how fast things like ChatGPT have taken over, and Grok, and all these things, where people are getting their information from.
Yeah, and they lie all the time. You can catch it lying. They lie. Yeah, like you can catch them lying, and sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that information." It's like, it's weird. They're programmed to lie about certain topics.
But the other point is, Jake, is what I said in the run-up to Trump coming to power in the weeks before, is what we're going to see, and you can see this on videos to confirm it. I said, what we're going to see when he gets into office is a blitzkrieg of reasons for the MAGA base to think we're winning. Because and so we've had this, unprecedented machine gun fire of executive orders. So many, I'm sure lots of people have no idea what's in lots of them, because there's another one along in a minute. But the point is that that is exactly what's happened. And the idea, I think I said this in our chat that wasn't recorded, the idea is to get the base, the focus, to look in that direction. We're winning. Look, he's doing this, he's doing that. And then the real agenda plays out behind that smoke screen.
Yeah, so they do small. Yeah, they do small things that are easy to undo that look like wins, but those wins are tiny little wins they could take away like that, and they're really doing the big stuff. That's what I'm looking at, like these small things, and they're doing big things, And then
that's exactly right.
And there also seems to be a big connection to all Trump's people in Israel. Like, I don't quite understand, like, building the third temple and taking the land in Greater Israel. It seems like a lot of people Trump are putting in, like, truly believe this stuff.
Well, I could talk at length about that, because I've been following this story for literally decades.
Yeah, it's in the last couple of years I started following it. I'm still trying to. There's so much going on in the process. I'm trying to figure out what's true, what's not. But it seems like there's definitely something there. And these people seem like they definitely want to take the land and build the temple. And
yes, they do. But this is the thing. I think it was Henry Kissinger who said, "It doesn't matter." I'm paraphrasing. It doesn't matter what's true. It's not that matters.
Yeah.
It matters what people think is true. And that's the whole basis of the conspiracy, which is the manipulation of human perception. So if we look at Israel, Israel has had an agenda, because like I say, this global cult plays the long game. So it would have known in the 1800s, in the 19th century, that Israel was going to be created in the 20th century. They would have known that. That's how long the game is. This is how people like George Orwell could predict in 1984 technology that's only now happening. This is how Aldous Huxley could predict technology in 1932 in Brave New World that's only now coming online.
Yeah.
Or coming into the public arena anyway. And so you look at Israel, and what they're doing is pulling the Jewish population and crucially pulling the Christian population, or much of it, into support for what is happening in Israel, because they are relating it to the Old Testament of the Bible, and they are giving the impression that God is making it happen when they are making it happen. So things go on in relation to Israel, and people say, "Oh, yeah, this is in the Bible. They predicted this. It's the Antichrist is coming, and then the Messiah and all that stuff." And so they make it seem as if it's happening, and they get tremendous support from people that support the Bible in relation to that. So the idea eventually is to demolish the Alaska Mosque on what Jews and Christians call Temple Mount, and replace it with the, quote, third Solomon's Temple. And so the prophecies talk about a red heifer born in Israel and never carried a yoke on its back and all that stuff. So they've made that happen. And if you had said what I've just said about demolishing the Alaska Mosque and replacing it with the Solomon's Temple just a few years ago, or less than a few years ago, then it would have been immediately dismissed, because people have said, understandably, can you imagine the hell that would break out if they tried to do that with a Muslim population and everything like that? But now look at it.
Yeah.
You've got the West Bank that is under siege currently from the Israeli army and settlers. The annexation of the West Bank given over to Israel is coming during the Trump administration. It's been already purchased by Miriam Adelson in a $100 million donation. And Gaza is, to quote Trump, a demolition site. What he doesn't mention, it's a demolition site because of the Israeli army using American weapons. And as a result of that, now they're saying, "Ooh, we're very nice, we are, we're very kind. We don't want any more killing." In other words, Mr. Trump is saying that if they don't agree to leave to Jordan and Egypt, they're going to get killed until they do. So you have this proposal you mentioned by Trump to move them out and to create a Riviera for the rich in Gaza, and so suddenly the opposition, any opposition with a dominant Israeli army, supported unquestionably by Trump, where's the opposition going to be when they start to choose to demolish the Alaska Mosque and replace it with Solomon's Temple? And there's a lot more to this. And what you've got is an inner core of this inner core. You might call it the Jewish mafia, the Sabbateans and the secret society operatives that control people like Netanyahu. Not that he needs much controlling; he's a willing follower. And they are driving this. Now, they know it's a load of crap. They know they're making it happen.
Yeah.
And then you've got the mass of the Jewish people, particularly in Israel, that are programmed from cradle to grave to believe what this inner core wants them to believe.
Yeah, most of them are just being plain wrong.
Are chosen people. Chosen people of God. God is making it happen. God is bringing us the third temple. It's all prophesied. And also that the world hates them. The world's against them. And therefore, if you fall for that, you look to your authority to protect you from what you are convinced is danger. And I remember seeing a documentary. It was done by a Jewish guy, and I've never been able to find it again on the internet. And it was a Jewish guy, and he did his documentary in Israel about exactly that, how people, kids, are programmed from the earliest age to believe this stuff. And if it's all you've ever heard, there's a good chance you're going to believe it.
Yeah, I think they're trying to drive people to hate them too, because like they're bombing, killing kids. You say something, and then like, oh, you're an anti-Semite. So they start trying to drive, I think, people to hate Jews.
Exactly, and I remember there was a young girl in this documentary, and she said, "We know the rest of the world hates us." So, well, I don't hate them. I'll challenge what they're doing vehemently, but I don't hate anybody. What's the point? What you hate, you become. And what you fight, you become if you go down the same roads and behaviour as those you're fighting. So this is what is happening. And then there's another group of Jewish people who don't buy any of it, who see through it all.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important not to say it's the Jews, but to say it's actually these people that are driving it.
Yeah, it seems like Jewish mafia or something else, whatever you call them. It seems like something behind the scenes, a small group of them that are manipulating it all, and a lot of other Jews go along with it because they're manipulated.
Yeah, and it's a ridiculously small number that are doing it in full knowledge of what they're doing. And that is staggering, of course, when you play that across the number of Jewish people in America, where it's 2% of the population in totality, never mind this inner core, which is tiny by comparison, who end up in positions of power in government after government, Democrat or Republican. I've listed in some of my books the Obama administration and the Trump administration and the Biden administration, and it's absolutely bloody extraordinary. Just look at the Biden administration and who was in positions of
all the top positions just happen to be Jewish, which is a little weird.
Now, of course, what you have is a blatant situation where, excuse me, over here, the ratio is crazy. If this was Chinese people or black people or Asian people, there'd be hell to pay. What's going on? So what you do, as you have already pointed out, is you invent something called anti-Semitism, when most of the people that are Jewish are not Semites at all. Especially people like Netanyahu, they come out.
Yeah, that's interesting too. They're not Semites that we know. The people that sold land, and they were atheists. They didn't believe in God. They said God gave them the land. Competing at the highest level has taught me the importance of supporting my body so I can always feel and perform my best. Unfortunately, we're seeing a generational decline in men's testosterone due to lifestyle choices, diet, and environmental toxins. This can lead to fatigue, diminished strength, reduced libido, mood swings, and overall loss of vitality, keeping you from feeling like your best self. That's why I recommend Men's Edge from Neutronics Lab. It's more than just a booster. It combines Finnegeek, IGF-1, and NO2. Sign up for AutoShip today and receive 50% off every order. Visit Neutronics Labs now and use the code FIGHTBACK for an additional 10% off your first purchase. Methylene blue has been used for over 100 years for medical purposes and recently surged back into popularity. It has been shown to help repair brain tissue and improve memory, cognitive function, energy, and mood. Research suggests that methylene blue could have neuroprotective effects, possibly aiding in conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and depression. Go to MerakiMedicinal.com and use the promo code FIGHTBACK for a discount.
Yeah, well, this is one of the things I pointed out in the books, Jake, over the years, is there's this inner core has complete contempt for Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you say?
I think they do for all religions.
What do you say about a Netanyahu who openly admitted that he allowed Pfizer to use Israel as a laboratory for its fake vaccine?
Yeah, the vaccine. That was a good one, too. I think I wasn't really following you back then, I don't think, but I imagine you were probably, actually, I saw a little of your stuff. I think you were spot on. You realized it was a complete joke. That's when I started paying attention to news, before I was fighting. But I could look at it, and I could see there was no virus traveling through the country, and everyone was melting down. And it was like, there's not even a real virus. The flu disappeared. Everyone says I'm crazy when I say there's no virus, but people were only dying from like respirators and drugs they were giving them. And I think you saw that right away. You were the only other people saying there's nothing here. That's actually when I first saw you.
I said that in April 2020. Mm-hmm. There is no virus. And
I think that's
immediately I was deleted from all the main internet platforms. It was spun as if I was saying, and I've heard this repeated so many times, including by Joe Rogan actually,
mm-hmm.
that what I said was the virus was caused by 5G. I never said that at all. What I said was that 5G can cause symptoms similar to what are claimed to be the alleged symptoms of COVID, which is actually true. What I said was, which got me banned, was there is no virus. And why this is important, and why I keep calling it out to this day, is because, they don't care. When I say they, I mean this global cult. If you believe the COVID virus came from a wet market, or if you think it was leaked from a lab in Wuhan.
As long as you believe there was a virus.
To you, the virus exists, so therefore there's something to respond to. And once you realize it's all a scam, and you hardly need to look too far when, as you just mentioned, flu disappeared worldwide when COVID came.
And no one questions that. They just act like it's not a big deal, but it's like there was no virus. People act like I'm insane when I say that. But early on I said I can't catch it because I don't believe in it. Can't catch something you don't believe in.
Yeah, and if you, as I was saying to people, they were saying, I've got COVID or I've had COVID. I said, okay, so what were your symptoms? And they give me the symptoms. And I said, do you know what you'd have said before this started? You'd have said, I've just had the flu, right? So flu disappeared. And this is the thing about the whole COVID hoax. You've got to stop thinking in black and white. And think outside of the box and look at the evidence and don't come from a preconceived idea. Because one of the things that happens, and the alternative media falls for this a lot, is they know that when they put out a PSYOP narrative, that not everyone's going to buy it.
Yeah.
They especially since the emergence of the alternative media, which didn't exist when I started out, that there's people in ever greater numbers that are starting to look at these things. Where's the conspiracy? Well, they're not if Trump says it, but if anyone else says it, they are. And so what you do is you give them a conspiracy to gnaw on the bone. It's just the wrong conspiracy.
That's where Alex Jones comes in.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing now, Jake, as you would have seen, is people quoting the CIA as saying the virus came out of a Wuhan lab leak. Sorry, this is the CIA you've been criticizing and exposing for years and years and years, and now you're quoting it in support of what you're saying, because that's that. But again, believe in the virus, and then they can play it again. Believe in the virus was a bioweapon, and then they can play it again, and justify the actions. But once you realize there never has been a COVID virus, you see that the fake vaccine was irrelevant. You see that the lockdowns, the masks, all of it were completely unjustifiable for something that didn't exist. And when people say to me, "Well, how do they create a virus that doesn't exist? It's ridiculous." Well,
they tell you it's there, the news.
Let's have a look at just very briefly at a few things here. First of all, they were testing if you had the virus with a PCR test, which its creator, Kerry Mullis, a biochemist in America, said cannot tell if you're sick or not.
Yep, I saw that. I saw that clip.
Yeah.
That's not what it's for, and he called Fauci a complete idiot and a moron.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is, in very early January of 2020, just when they're playing this card big time, along comes a guy called Christian Drosten, a virologist out of Germany, with a protocol to use with the PCR test to see if people have got the COVID virus. He later admitted that he never actually had a sample of the, quote, natural virus. He only had a computer program mock-up, which is what COVID actually was. And so within like 24 hours, no time, the World Health Organization, a cult-controlled operation set up by the Rockefellers, 1948, recommended this Drosten protocol to all its member states across the world for COVID. Now, so what happened? You were tested, and this is why they wanted the testing, mass testing everywhere, because the more tests they had, the more positives they were going to get, because this PCR test operates with cycles of amplification. The more you amplify the test, the more positives you're going to get, because they put genetic material in it, and the more they amplify the test, the more pieces of genetic material get accessed or acknowledged by the test, and you get more positives. Now, even Fauci was talking about if you go more than 30 to 35 cycles of amplification with the PCR test, anything above that is basically useless, because it'll just basically what you get is positives all over the place. Well, the National Health Service in Britain and other health services around the world were using 45 cycles of amplification. So they were getting masses of positive tests when there was absolutely nothing wrong with people.
They were telling healthy people that they had the virus. They convinced us that you're healthy, walking around, feeling totally fine, and you had a virus, and people believed it.
Yeah, but this is why, there's certain things. If authorities telling you something, they're almost certainly lying. All right, that's the way you start off from. Not they're telling you the truth. The thing is, though, they wanted to lock down everybody. Now, in a normal situation, what you do is you isolate people who are sick.
Yeah, seems pretty common sense.
Done up to that point. But they wanted to lock down everyone because they wanted to destroy the economy, and they wanted to...
It did. I don't know about London, probably the same, but it killed the middle class here.
Yeah, they want to create this fascistic mass obeying of
They
authority.
want you to obey, and they want people depressed too, isolated by themselves. I mean, a ton of people
Exactly.
got hooked on drugs,
Yeah.
suicide skyrocketed. It was people were not meant to be isolated, to be stuck in your
Yeah.
house telling you can't go around. I can't, it was shocking people complied.
But on one level, it was a test to see how compliant the population actually was for future reference. So
And we,
anyway, so what they had to do, how do we lock down everybody when they're not sick? Oh, I know. We'll invent this idea of asymptomatic um, passing on the virus. So you may be fine, you may be wonderful, you may be running the 100 meters in 9 seconds or something,
yeah, but you're
but
sick.
you're sick and you could pass it on. And so this justified the lockdown of everyone. And then, of course, they needed deaths. Oh, they needed the perception of deaths. And so they invented this ludicrous idea that if you died of any other cause within 28 days, sometimes more,
Yeah,
of having a positive COVID test, then COVID-19 went on your death certificate and went on the figures, the data.
they were also using those putting you on those breathing things. Once you're on those, you use the ventilators. You rarely survive once you're on those. Especially if you're already sick, they put you on those. People rarely survive. So they were killing
Right. Well,
thousands of people.
this is another point, Jay. One thing I will mention is this coroner in one of the counties of America who went public with the fact that a fifth of her COVID deaths, I think it was a fifth, actually died of gunshot wounds. But COVID went on their death certificate. What you had in America were financial incentives to hospitals, which went like this: $4,600 for every patient that you diagnose with regular pneumonia, $13,000 for every patient you diagnose COVID-19 pneumonia, and $39,000 for every patient you put on a ventilator, which, as you rightly say, Jake, would almost certainly kill them. So what I'm saying is, when you see the flu disappearing, when you see the manipulation of the COVID test to get the cases, the manipulation to get the alleged deaths, and the financial incentives, and all these things together, you do not have to do that if you have a real virus, or in the alternative media's version of events, a real bioweapon, because it just does its thing without any help from you. But what you have to do if you don't have a virus, you just want to give the illusion of one, is you have to do all these things. And I would say this, Jake, as well about this. I've been tracking this global cult now I'm coming into my 36th year, full time. And one thing you know about them is their mentality is terrified of states of flux, where it can't call the outcome. It's terrified of them because it wants to control everything. And if you look at the mentality of control freaks among the population, they're always insecure people who want to use control to give them that sense of security of controlling events. And so this is why they want to control all sides in an argument, so that they know what the outcome's going to be before the argument starts or the game starts.
Yeah,
And
they
that
control.
mentality is never in the world going to release a bioweapon virus that it can't control, that's going to kill people it doesn't want to kill. So the idea of not having a virus but giving the illusion of one gives you total control, because you can invent your variants of the variant whenever you like, because you don't have to have one.
Exactly, and they don't want to release something that could kill them and their loved ones, so they, it makes them complete control. I want to switch it up a little bit with a kind of unusual question. I've noticed these elites, right? They seem to really believe, like they constantly mock religion and gods and stuff, but it seems like they believe something. You watch, like, Epstein, his towers. They have like these owl gods and these temples. Bohemian Grove, they're burning like sacrilege also of an owl. Like all these elites seem to almost worship these some kind of demons or something. Like, what's your take on all that?
Well, I've been researching this for decade after decade after decade. I mean, how long have you got?
Yeah, I got as longest. I just know this. Yeah, I know. I've heard you speak on this a little bit, but not in depth. And it's something that I've noticed that's been. It seems like they truly believe that there's something out there they're working with, and they want us to believe there's nothing.
Okay, the origin of the control of humans is not even in this dimension. It's outside of this dimension, and it's a non-human force. And these satanic secret societies are worshipping and doing the bidding of that non-human force. The non-human force operates outside of the human band of frequency, which is all this world is. It's a band of frequency.
Yeah.
And they need, therefore, operatives within the human band of frequency to play out the agenda of the other dimensional, demonic, in terms of how we perceive demonic entities. So this global cult, which is a global network of secret societies, fiercely compartmentalized, so only a few know the real story, is doing the bidding and playing out an agenda on behalf of a non-human force operating outside of the human frequency band. Now, this starts to explain so many things. I started to look at the ancients who were doing human sacrifice rituals to the gods. And then as I came into this in 1990 and got deeper and deeper into it very quickly, I realized that these rich and famous people in politics and entertainment and business and government were taking part in satanic rituals, sacrifice rituals, often children, to these entities. And of course, the penny drops very quickly. Hold on a minute. What they are doing the sacrifice to, these modern billionaires and others, are the same entities that the ancients called the gods all over the world, and we're doing human sacrifice to.
Yeah, often children too, and it's just all kinds of different time periods, different cultures, and it was really weird when we went down this human sacrifice rabbit hole that so many different places did it, and it was always the same. The gods always wanted children or virgins or warriors. It's a little strange.
Young virgins, sacrificing young virgins to the gods, what's that? It's code for children. And vast numbers of children. I was researching this in the 1990s. The number of children that go missing every year is absolutely fantastic. People relate the number of children to go missing to the number of missing children stories in the news. But outside of the news, vast numbers of children go missing. They end up in these, a lot of them end up in these cults. And so, the question, well, this is getting deep. The question then comes, well, why do these gods want sacrifice? Well, when the Morpheus character in The Matrix held up a battery and said, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world designed to turn humans into one of these. Yeah. Well, he was speaking in a apparently fictional movie a profound truth, because what these entities are doing, not far out of the human reality, interpenetrating it actually, is feeding off human energy. It's been given the name by some insiders as Loosh, this overwhelmingly low vibrational energy, which means that the more suffering, the more fear, the base foundation of this Loosh, fear, the more deprivation, the more depression, etc., that humans are generating because of the way society works, the more of this low vibrational energy is being absorbed by these entities. It's been long established by even mainstream science that every time we think and every time we feel emotion, we're giving off frequencies that relate to the nature of the thought and the nature of the emotion. So things like joy and love and happiness are high frequencies, and depression and fear and struggle and all these other things, like resentment and hatred and what have you, they're low, slow frequencies, and they are overwhelmingly, not totally, but overwhelmingly what these entities feed off, because they themselves are in a low vibrational state. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. And so the more misery, fighting, conflict, war, depression that can be generated by this global cult representing that non-human force, the more energy sustenance they have to absorb. Now, what's interesting, I mean, I could just talk about this forever, is that when you say you feel it, you're in an emotional state, a real low emotional state, anxiety or whatever, you see by the body language of the person that it's a low vibrational state they're in. But you can't see the frequencies that the person's giving off as a result of that, because that is operating outside of human sight, those frequencies. And those frequencies are going in to this other realm where these entities are, the demons of the Bible and the jinn of the Islamic belief system, the archons of the Gnostic belief system. They're all they all have different names for the same thing. The common themes are fantastic, but these energies, these frequencies we're giving off, are going into this other dimension. That's why we can't see them, and they're feeding off it, which brings us back to the reason for the sacrificial rituals. When I looked at these things and I saw that they were making a gift, a sacrifice to the gods, obviously my first thought is, well, what do the bloody gods get out of it then? And then you realize when you get into the deeper levels of the fact that they are basically feeding off human low vibrational emotional energy and mental energy, is that when they do these rituals, these sacrifice rituals, and when you talk to people who've been involved in them, often against their will, or people that have seen the light eventually, they tell you that they're doing the same rituals now in terms of the way they do them that they did in Babylon and Egypt and the ancient world, because of the effect that it has. So what they do is they build up the sacrifice, the terror in the sacrifice, because terror is a extremely powerful low vibrational energy. Of course it is. Imagine, you're a kid and you're in one of these rituals and what have you, and what's going on. And so these entities are feeding off that terror. That's the gift to the gods, and that's why they're sacrificing them. And when they eventually, reach the conclusion, what happens eventually is that the terror releases an adrenaline into the blood in response to the terror. The terror is going out as a frequency, which is being absorbed by these entities, but it also causes this adrenaline to enter the blood. And that is adrenochrome. That's what these people are actually carrying out the sacrifice in this reality, in the satanic rituals. That's why they drink the blood, because it has this adrenaline in it, which is like a drug to them. It gives them a high. And so, when you get deep into this, and, you do have to, when you're researching this, I did find this myself in the 90s when I started grasping this in about 1995, you have to take a step back emotionally, because the horrors are unspeakable. But what it tells you is this: don't let anyone say they would never do that. No, you would never do that. They are sacrificing children to their demonic gods. Do you think they care about you? Do you think they care about your life and your children's life? They couldn't care bloody less. They just got to convince you they do, so you vote for them, but they couldn't care less. And so then you say, well, how can you possibly come up with a fake vaccine that you know is going to kill all these people and destroy the health of all these people? How can you come up with a vaccine and play it out in places like Africa that sterilizes children so they can't have kids of their own? How can you do that? Oh, okay. I tell you how they can do that. The mentality that sacrifices kids can do that. This is what we're dealing with. And one of the hardest things to get across, Jake, over the years has been the pure level of evil that we're dealing with. I mean, you have a smear of empathy. You cannot do what Netanyahu's doing in Israel decade after decade. And this is one of the things about this mentality, it's just important to get across. If you look at it's called the hair test, named after the guy who invented it, of traits. And if you have enough of them, you are officially a psychopath. And the top two traits are lack of empathy, number one, and lack of compassion. Now, empathy, I say, is the fail-safe mechanism of human behavior. If you have empathy, you can put yourself in the position of those you're affecting. That impacts upon your behavior and what you'll do, because you can put yourself in the feelings of those you're affecting. Mm-hmm. If you have no empathy, you have no emotional consequence for whatever you do. And that's the mentality of the people we're talking about. And that's why they can do what they do. And not only not have an emotional consequence, they can get off on it. Gives them a thrill.
Yeah, it's weird. I haven't done a lot of research on it, but the little bit I have done, something that really struck me as odd is all the kids told the exact same story. It was almost identical. And it sounds so ridiculous to be true, but then you have 10, 15 people, or probably a lot more than that, the ones that I saw, all telling almost identical stories of how the rituals were done.
Yes, and, I keep going on about it, but I've been doing this a long time. And I've met so many people over the last 35, 36 years that I've been able to cross-reference so many things that on first hearing seem far out and outrageous. But I've been able to cross-reference them in different parts of the world to see that it's going on. And because it's a global cult that operates globally, it's important to hold that, not get caught in the state level alone, because it's a global operation. It's happening everywhere, all over the world, the satanic rituals and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really weird. So when did you start tracing it back to? How far back have you been able to trace it, like the origins?
Well, you can get it comfortably back to ancient Babylon and Sumer and ancient Egypt. And you can track it through the Roman Empire and up into, thanks to the Roman Empire, and later into Northern Europe. And where the whole thing was global before, because, of course, these sacrificial rituals were going on all over the world.
The Aztecs were massive there, too. Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
But where the real concerted, controlled global agenda really kicked off was with the the European countries who colonized the world, not least Britain. They said the sun never set on the British Empire, so vast was it. And Britain is such a center, a global center of this global cult. When you think the British Empire, and you see the scale of it, and then you see the size of Britain, I mean, it's ridiculous. But because the cult was centered in Britain, you had that empire coming out of there. And so what happened is all these countries, the European countries, which by then were cult controlled, they then went global. They went all over the world, took over all these countries, and put their global cult agenda in place. Now, what then happened, and this was a real sleight of hand, which is why it's so important not to think in black and white. You saw this period of decolonization when the European powers rolled back their colonies, and it seemed as if these former colonies had been given independence. But what happened is they left out in those countries these various bloodline families that operate through this cult, and the secret society network that they put in place during the colonial period. And they've gone on controlling those countries ever since, except it's a much more powerful control. Because when you are occupied by colonists, you know what the situation is. And although you may not know about the global cult, you can look and see who your controllers are in terms of like the British or the French or whatever. And eventually you can rebel against that. But when the control is hidden and you can't see it, and it's covered by something called democracy, where political parties and politicians tell you in an election campaign what you want to hear, so you vote for them, knowing that when they get in office, they're going to do what they plan to do all along, which is what Trump's doing now. Then democracy is irrelevant, because the cult is dictating events and policy, not the population with their vote. But it covers the idea, oh yeah, we've got the vote, we're free now. Well, actually you're not, because the same force is controlling everything. And this is the lesson, one of the big lessons of COVID. How do you have countries all over the world, with very, very rare exceptions, responding to COVID, a virus that didn't exist, in exactly the same way? Because it's all centrally controlled, that's the point. And if we look at Trump and Musk and people like that, purely from an American standpoint, then we're going to not see what they're really doing, because they're playing a part in a global agenda, not just one for America.
Yeah, they want the whole world, it seems. I take it the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, those are both two families that I assume were part of the cult?
Oof, big time.
It seems like those two families did a lot of bad.
The Rothschilds are absolutely involved in the cult. I mean, that's their religion. And this is the thing. I've said this in a video this week. If you look at Israel as an example, we have a Bible. And a lot of people, Christians, won't like this, but this is my philosophy. Believe what you like. It's none of my business. Just don't impose it on everyone else. Then it becomes everyone's business. You look at the Bible and you look at the Old Testament. And I saw a video this week, this is why I mentioned it, by Russell Brand, which he was saying that if you're a Christian, that he's become, then you must acknowledge that there is a big connection between Jews and the land of Israel. Well, hold on a minute. First of all, the Old Testament was written by who knows when, and who knows what circumstances. And the books of the Bible were decided what went in and what didn't. You want to read some that didn't, give you a very different view on the world, by the Roman Church, the church created by the Roman Empire. And indeed it was Constantine the Great, the Roman Emperor, in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea in what is now Turkey, who basically decided the creed, which Christians have to believe to this day. Now, that's fine. Believe it. None of my business. The point is that the Bible the Old Testament is being quoted to justify events in 2025. What are we doing? So the Roman Empire compiled the books of the Bible, decided what went in and what didn't. And the British Empire, controlled by the Rothschilds to its DNA, used the fact of the words and claims in the Old Testament to justify, because the British were massively centrally involved in this, to justify the creation of Israel in 1948.
Yeah, it's pretty wild because most of people with their bloodlines aren't even from the Palestine region.
Exactly.
Or European.
But again, what you've got is, okay, believe the Bible is the word of God. Therefore, it can't be wrong. Mm-hmm. So there's some great stuff in the Bible. There's some great stuff in the New Testament. Some great sayings. I absolutely acknowledge that. But because it's the word of God, everything must be true because God can't be wrong. Which means you've got the good stuff and you've got the dross and the misleading stuff, and somehow you are asked to square the circle that all this stuff, even though it's fundamentally contradictory, all of it is true. Mm-hmm. And so you are given this belief in the historical truth of the Old Testament, and this is used to justify ownership, rights, and even look at what Netanyahu has said in some of his speeches, to justify mass slaughter of the innocent. It's ridiculous that this is still going on in 2025. But this is why they are trying and succeeding at the moment in making the biblical prophecies appear to play out, because it pulls all the Christians in.
Yeah, the Christian Zionists is a big problem in the U.S. These guys, they believe this blindly because the Bible tells them. I think the Bible somewhere says they're a synagogue of Satan, too. It says they're blindly believing, and these are people that aren't even from this land. So it's not even the original people that were the original Jews. And they have these people that, they went out, they want to build the third temple and do this, and they say God's chosen people. And it's like, how do we get these people to wake up? That seems like that's a big problem for the U.S. control.
Well, I have described not just the Christian religion, but all religion. Muslim religion, Hindu religion. I've described it as the greatest form of mind control ever invented, and so is politics. Politics is you've got
left versus right.
Yeah, you've got 8 billion people, and a few, and it is by comparison to the 8 billion, a few. At its inner core, it's tiny by comparison. You have a few who are dictating the lives of the 8 billion and the direction of the world. Now, purely from a mathematical point of view, that is impossible. So what you have to do is divide and rule the population and set it at war with itself. And the biggest, one of the biggest divisions is belief systems, whether they're political belief systems or religious belief systems or whatever. So you divide the target population so it doesn't come together in unity and see you off and realize that you're actually a house of cards. You've got no power at all that the population doesn't give you in the form of acquiescence. So you look at religion, and you look at any religion, not talking about just one, and you look at politics. And what that creates is this. This is why I say, if you are a genuine researcher and you are looking for the truth, whatever the truth turns out to be, then you've got to free yourself, first of all, from preconceived idea called belief systems. You've got to be free to go where the information takes you. And if it takes you into some far out places, well, if the information and the evidence justifies, well, go there. But what happens when you have a rigid belief system, whether it's left or right in politics or some religion, is it creates immediately massive numbers of no-go areas where you will not research and you will not go, because if you go there, you know that your belief system could come under threat and challenge. So,
yeah, the majority of people, they won't go against their party. I've noticed it's like if the party believes it, they automatically believe it, and that's kind of scary. And religion's even more so.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're seeing with Trump. You know, no matter. My question is, what does he and Musk have to do before people start saying, "Well, hold on a minute, what's going on?" Well, a lot of people are, but I mean the real Trumpers. But the point is that if you have massive no-go areas where you won't go, and this thing with Russell Brand is a classic. He's equating, because he believes in the Bible, he's equating that there is a justification for Jews being in Israel because the Old Testament says so. Then there's, first of all, it directs your belief system into certain areas of accepting things that should be questioned. But it creates, excuse me, no-go areas where you won't go. And it's in those no-go areas where the truth lies and enlightenment lies. And so we've got to free our minds, get a blank sheet of paper again and say, anything that gets on my piece of paper in terms of how I see things, it's got to earn its place by evidence and by information, and not
it's crazy
pure belief. And what this tells you something, Jake. You know, of 8 billion people, 5.4 billion either recognize themselves as Christians, Muslims, or Hindus. Now, if you are born in the Hindu part of the world or a Hindu household, any part of the world, you're almost certainly going to be a Hindu. If you're born in the Middle East, you're almost certainly going to be a Muslim, and in Muslim families around the world. If you're born in the southern states of America, there's a heck of a chance you're going to be a Christian. Now, this tells you something. It means that people are not coming to their own conclusions on the basis of the evidence. Their conclusions are being formed, programmed by their environment and all they've ever heard. Now, if you are looking at someone with an open mind, then they would be born in a household that's strictly religious, but their open mind would start to question, and they wouldn't actually buy it. But that's not what happens. And so religion is programming. It's what you've been brought up to believe. See, if you get a vehement Christian, an extreme Christian evangelist in the southern states of America, say, if they were born in the Middle East or in India, they would be equally vehement evangelical promoters of Islam or Hinduism. This is the ridiculous thing. We've got to take our minds back. And I said in a post this week, you know, Schwab talks about the Great Reset. Well, what we need to respond to that is another great reset, a great reset of the human mind and human perception. So we start to clear ourselves of this perceptual programming and start to reach our own conclusions and not what others tell us we must have.
Yeah, I wasn't asked what we can do to fight back against this cult. I think that's the first part of the question right there is, clear our minds. Like, what else can we do?
Well, I mean, you know, they don't divide and rule us for a bit of fun. They do it because without that, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Because in unity, they can't sustain it. And I would say this as an example. What they're trying to do all the time is getting us to give our power to them. That's the whole basis of it. So in the days of royalty, you gave your power to one person, the king or the queen, and they ran the show on behalf of people in the shadows. And then they invented politics when people got, they'd had enough royal dictatorship. They gave the illusion of freedom through politics. And what they want is for you to give your power away again. What you do is you, as I said earlier, you have an election and the politicians tell you what they think you want to hear, their particular constituency, so that you'll vote for them. And when you vote for them and you put them in, they do what they plan to do all along, which is invariably not what they said they do or wouldn't do. So all the time they're trying to get us to give our power away. So if you look at the Trump situation, I don't know how many people voted for Trump in the last few elections. I guess it was something like 74, 75 million. And what they've done is they've given, and we're seeing this with the executive orders big time, they've given their power away to one man. Now, I have to smile sometimes because I hear, rightly, that the plan is to bring in a technocracy where there's no more elected politicians, just people who are appointed, technocrats, bureaucrats, people who are so-called health experts and so on. And you have a appointed government, no elections. And that's right, that's what they want. But when I look at America and the way it works, particularly as it works now under Trump, more extreme than ever, is it's pretty much already a technocracy. Because you elect the president, and then he appoints these people who've overwhelmingly never seen a ballot box in their life in the positions of power. So it's an appointed government overwhelmingly, led by the president. And through executive orders, he has grasped centralization of power on a level in terms of the executive order number in the short time he's been in office, probably never seen before. And so all those 75 million people have given their power to Trump. And Trump will do what his masters tell him to do, like all of them, whoever party. And yet, what if those 75 million people, instead of giving their power away to Trump or anyone else, said, we're not going to cooperate with our own enslavement one day longer. And we're going to put down our disagreements over religion and politics, and we're going to come together in unity and say, we're not having it anymore. And I've used this analogy many times over the years. Imagine someone comes out of the White House or Downing Street and says, we've had a discussion, and this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to happen. And what if enough people say, we're not doing that? We're not doing that. No, we're not doing it. Where's the power now? The power is not with politicians. It's not even with the cult, ultimately. It's given away by the population in the form of acquiescence. Stop doing it. Stop playing a part. Stop acquiescing to your own enslavement and your kids' enslavement. COVID was a classic. Mm-hmm. If people acquiesced because of what people who lie for a living told them was going on, they didn't question it, they accepted it, and as a result, they were locked down, jabbed, masked, for something that didn't exist. This is how ridiculous it is. And this is why this great reset of the human mind and human perception has to take place. Otherwise, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, COVID is a perfect example. It only worked because we went along. We didn't have to put masks on. We didn't have to stay locked up. We didn't have to get the vaccine. I mean, I didn't do any of these things, but the majority of people did. And they would yell at me for not putting a mask on and stuff. But it's like they're the ones going along with it. They're the ones being crazy, not me. And it's a perfect example of we can resist these things.
I was in a shop once. During COVID and the lockdowns, and there was this guy. There was only me and this guy and the person serving. I obviously didn't have a mask on. And this guy saw me. He was an old guy, obviously had learned nothing in his life. And he saw me without a mask on, and he literally ran to the other side of the shop and started shouting at me.
Yeah, I had the same thing happen. I was in San Francisco at the time. That was the worst place to be. Like, everyone in San Francisco. It just shows. It's weird that it showed what politics you were is what you were believing. If you were left wing, you automatically wore a mask, and some people on the right didn't. Perfect example of belief systems. And that was when I was like, this is insane. I was in the worst place. Everyone in San Francisco just went along with it, and they thought anyone that wasn't was evil just because of the politics. So, I mean, luckily the conservatives went against it a little bit.
Yeah, I tell you one of the things, Jake, that has frustrated me since COVID is so many people that bought it then came into the alternative media and started becoming the go-to people on COVID. It's extraordinary to watch. There's a guy called Brett Weinstein, and there's an interview he did during the COVID, where he's describing to the interviewer what he does to protect himself from COVID. Apparently, he's some kind of biologist or something. Think outside the box, Brett, please. And what he did, he had a bandana around his neck, and he said, "I keep this around my neck all day, so that when I answer the door, I can pull it over my face." He said when he goes out, he puts glasses on to protect his eyes from the virus going in through his eyes. And every time he comes back from going out, he changes his clothes and washes the clothes he's been wearing while he was out. And suddenly I see him on the Carlson show and the Joe Rogan show being interviewed as some kind of expert on bloody COVID. I mean, it's... the people, if you look at it, it was the people that didn't buy COVID, overwhelmingly, not everyone, who has become marginalized in this new alternative media regime. And it's ridiculous. I mean, look at the people who saw it before, not the people after. Surely they're the people to give an opinion on what's going on now.
Yeah, even Joe Rogan went along with it for a while. Everyone look at him. They look at him as like, oh, he was the guy against COVID, but for like months he went along with it. It wasn't until I think he got it that he finally realized that it wasn't a big deal. I think he hit out for months first, and they pushed him as like he was early on it, but he was late.
Yeah, but of course he didn't get it. He got something, he didn't get it. What are your symptoms? Oh, that's the flu.
Flu, cold. That was his whole point. Oh no, I'm not really sick. It was just like, it's not a big deal. It was like a mild cold. Exactly. So you were scared this whole time. And even when I went on his show, he still wanted me to take a test. And that was like a year and a half later. I was kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to take that test.
God.
And he didn't make me take it, but it was kind of weird that he asked me to take a COVID test. And this was, I don't know, this was a year after he had it. It was way past COVID.
Well, this is the point, you see. This is why, I've been doing this for a long time, and this is why it's so frustrating. When you see people coming in now, I love new people coming in. Oh my God, do I love it? Because the more the merrier. It means we're expanding the knowledge base and communication base. Fantastic. What I'm challenging are the people that have come in who know nothing about the big picture, who bought COVID and bought so many other things, and then become the go-to people to tell you what's going on. How can they tell you what's going on when they don't bloody know? But they get the numbers because they get the algorithmic support and the people. And you're a wonderful example with X.
Yeah.
If you speak against the narrative, suddenly you are in effect excluded compared with those who get the algorithmic support, and it's blatant. And one of the things about researching this stuff and looking at the world is to understand that just because something looks like it is today doesn't mean it's always going to be like that. So when Musk comes in with X and says free speech and all that stuff, well, first of all, freedom of speech, not freedom of reach, is not freedom of speech. So that told you the agenda straight away. But it doesn't mean that it's always going to be like that. As they chip away and chip away and chip away at what people can say and not say until it becomes just like the old Twitter eventually.
Yep. They're suspending more accounts now at Twitter than they were before.
Yeah. So, don't judge things by what they are. See where they're going and where they could go. And it's obvious where X is going. It's going towards the social credit system of finance and judgment by what you post and what you don't post and what you can post and what you can't post. It's all a facade, and it's all
scary
bullshit. And it's not going to stay like it. Well, it's less than it was before now. You found that out, but it's not going to stay as it is now either.
No, they're trying to be a banking service. I think people are pretty dumb if they use that for your banking when they already have a credit score. I mean, taking away your check mark is kind of a point. If you have the wrong positions, we'll take away your check mark.
That's
free speech, but you can't have a check mark. Exactly.
Well,
I think we can.
We can
wrap up next few minutes.
Yeah, people have said to me, I hear it all the time, Musk's a genius. Sorry, I don't agree. I think Musk, as the personality of a 30-year-old, frankly, and the idea that he's running all those companies when he's
on Twitter all day,
posts on Twitter all day, and playing computer games, which he pays other people to make it seem like he's good at them. That's not a man you're going to trust with your money.
No.
Certainly not what I have, anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to believe he's running like 6 different companies or whatever it is. It seems a little unrealistic. So he may be the front man. I don't know. I'm a little suspect.
Complete front man. You know what he said once on the Rogan show? He said, I think it was on the Rogan show. He said, 80% of my time is done designing and engineering. What a load of bloody nonsense. And
there's no way.
He's a con man. He's conning you. And you'll see how much as this Trump-Musk regime unfolds.
Yeah, well, anything else you want to add before we wrap up? And where can people find you and everything?
Oh, well, they can find me at davidicke.com. They can find me on Twitter as long as I last.
For now, yeah.
And
until he kicks you off.
Yeah, I think they're a bit reluctant to have a go at me because of I've been so blatantly challenging them and Musk and stuff. It would be a bit blatant, but anyway, we'll see. I've just gone back onto Facebook after Zuckerberg had his fake Damascus experience in terms of free speech. And again, he's in a catch-22 because if he throws me off again, then he's proving he's a fraud. But the other thing is iconic.com. That's our media platform, and we've got like 500 hours of shows and documentaries and stuff. And I've been involved in a lot of them, and that's a real important thing to me.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Zuckerberg because he hopped on Joe Rogan. He's like wearing the chain, his hair's done different. He's like, "What's up, guys? I'm one of the bros now." It's like he thinks people are just gonna fall for that. And imagine being dumb enough to believe that, Mr. Free Speech. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm a free speech guy," and people are looking at that, believing him. I mean, maybe he'll leave Twitter. I mean, maybe Facebook will be a little more open, but the guy is obviously full of it.
Yeah, he's part of the gang. He's part of the gang. This is the point. You look at Musk, and he seems to be the opposite to Gates, the opposite to Zuckerberg, the opposite to Bezos, and these others, and yet they're all on the same team. And this is the thing that brings it together. See, when you're on the same team and you're trying to control everything, then some of your team is going to be speaking against what you want. And some of your team is going to be speaking in favor of what you want because you're controlling all sides. And what happens in the end is those sides fuse into the same agenda. And that's why suddenly Zuckerberg and Bezos and these other people are given front row seats at the inauguration of Trump, it's because the gang's now coming together with Thiel and Anderson, etc. This is what's happening because they're now going to the final run-in to the AI control of society, hiding behind, we're winning.
And you see Alex Jones going right along with it too, which is interesting. It's like, was he always a fraud, or was he legitimate and then turned to them? It's hard to say.
Well, I can't believe the level of sycophancy that Alex Jones has now descended into. It's absolutely extraordinary. I heard him say the other day about the Trump idea of America taking over Gaza and moving the Palestinians into Egypt and Jordan. Oh, it's just his opinion, he's a right to his opinion and all this stuff. Well, he's president of the United States, mate. But no criticism of Trump, no criticism of Musk. In fact, eulogization of the king, the God King Musk on Infowars these days. And when you look at how he's railed against so much over the years, and now he's supporting and promoting the very thing he railed against. I saw him post something a few weeks ago where he was suggesting, because of course Musk said it and Trump said it, so Alex must say it, that the Canadian people should be given a vote for whether they want to be the 51st state of America. This is the guy who was railing, as I was and still am, against the North American Union, which is the fusion of Canada, United States, and Mexico, which was running in the 1990s, and we were pushing back against that then. And
it's a push for more globalism.
If you look at a map of the world, which was a wish list map by the Club of Rome, another big-time cult operation, which is behind the climate change hoax and so much more. It breaks the world up into regions. And guess what the region in your part of the world is?
Canada, Mexico, and the U.S.?
No, it's United States, Canada, and Greenland.
Greenland, oh really? And now Trump, that's so weird because that's where Trump's saying he wants to take.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What a shocker.
America first, but imperialist first, really.
Yeah, but Greenland and Gaza Strip, no, it's so ridiculous. So, well, anyways, thanks so much, David, and hopefully we'll talk again sometime.
Yeah, real pleasure, Jake. Thanks very much for asking.
Great. Good one. Go.